salute. So Terrance Bud Crawford just wants to be great. I'm saying I watched the video today. I'm gonna shout out this guy channel, Bud Beats Spence Easy. I watched his channel earlier. He was talking about Terrance Bud Crawford had a tweet. He says he just wants to be great. And down the line of that tweet was a bunch of responses, right? He also had another tweet that says something, I'm paraphrasing the fuck out of this, but he says something about y'all have a hard time admitting that I'm great or saying that I'm great. Just go ahead and say it. I'm the greatest or something along those lines, right? And some people that just go too hard to hate on Terrance Bud Crawford for whatever reasons was saying stuff about his resume. And Bud beat Spence Easy, I don't know his real name, but he was in defense talking about how great Terrance Bud Crawford resume is. First of all, let me say this. First and foremost, Terrance Bud Crawford, he is already great. He's already, like I said, pound for pound, #1 right now. He unified 140. He was a champion at a smaller division. He moved up, and he moved up to welterweight, and he, you know what I'm saying, took hardware off of Jeff Horn. You know what I'm saying? So right now, I'm not going to argue whether or not he's pound for pound or whether or not he's great or Hall of Fame. He's all of those things. He's a Hall of Fame. He's pound for pound. He's a great fighter. So the tweet that he put out where I just want to be great, to me, that was kind of like a vague expression. But he was just saying, I just want to be great. He want to be acknowledged for how great he is. That's what he said. Something like, people don't respect me now, but when I retire or something like that, they're going to appreciate my accomplishments and et cetera, et cetera. I heard him say that before. And I salute him now. I give him his roses now. He's a great fighter. But it's not that, you know what I'm saying, I hate the fact that his welterweight resume has glaring deficiencies. But at the same time, you can look at anybody's resume and tear it down. Because it's boxing. It's not like you always get the best of the best. Like this dude right here is 100% beating everybody, undefeated, no injuries, no setbacks in his career, at the top of his game, elite, versus another undefeated, no injuries, no glaring deficiencies, top of his game, elite, go head to head. That's rare. You know what I'm saying? There's usually going to be something there. It's the fact that when you look at Terrance Bud Crawford welterweight resume, the deficiencies for me are more glaring. But you can see, you can pick out things in Errol Spence's resume to say who has he fought that makes him so great. You can do that with anybody. You can do that with Canelo. When you be like, who was Yildirim? Or look at how Sergey Kovalev had a tough fight against Anthony Yarde. Or look how Callum Smith had a short training camp. Or look how you know what I'm saying, you weight drain Daniel Jacobs or rehydrate Claus this. You can do that with anybody. You can look at Deontay Wilder resume or Tyson Fury resume. You can look at all of them and say who they fought and what kind of, you know what I'm saying, asterisk or what kind of where you can take away. With Terrance Bud Crawford, when he goes into the welterweight, well, first of all, who he unified with, Julius Undango, went in his own backyard and took his strap. I salute that. You know what I'm saying? Ricky Burns, I think he had broke his jaw in the fight, but heart of a champion. He fought hard, tough fight, took his strap. And who else did he take a strap from? Victor Postal at the time. Victor Postal was like, you know, the boogeyman or whatever. And he wasn't as wore down as he is now when he beat Victor Postal. But, you know, going up into the welterweight division, you can just see the glaring issues with his opponents. I can, when it comes to Jeff Horn. And they say, well, Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao. Now, when I watched that fight, I remember watching that fight when it first went down, and he got the victory. I'll give Jeff Horn the victory over Manny Pacquiao. But you could see who was the better fighter. You could see the issues. You can see the controversy. You could see that Manny Pacquiao started late for whatever reasons. Dude was kind of out hustling him. He was in his backyard. Manny Pacquiao, they were saying he kind of lost that killer instinct. But as soon as he turned it on and started putting the pedal to the metal, He was beating the shit out of Jeff Horn. Jeff Horn, you could see, wasn't the most talented champion. He got a victory that was in his backyard, where the judges weren't going to sit there and just be like, we can see that you're not landing the cleanest punches. You know what I mean? Like Teddy Atlas the whole time was like, if they really did their job the right way, round by round, he was saying this, if they was really doing their job, they could see that Manny Pacquiao is executing cleaner punching and beating this guy. But he was out hustling Manny Pacquiao, but he almost got knocked out. He was all bloodied up in the 9th round, pillar to post. So when Terrance Bud Crawford comes and beat Jeff Horn, it's not we can see it, we can salute it, but we can say Jeff Horn wasn't elite. When he goes and he fights Amir Khan, it's just very obvious that first of all, Jose Benavidez, you say, oh, you can't talk about the leg issue. Well, you can't take away the mobility of him, and it went 12 rounds, and you could tell that he had a lack of mobility because he's forever going to be plagued with an injury to his knee by some gunshots. And he only had like 2 fights in between that, and it was a few rounds. You know what I'm saying? Nevertheless, you still have to acknowledge that and say, well, if he went 12 rounds on a bad leg, if he was a 100% with no issues, no gunshot to his knee, it would have probably been a little bit difference of a fight. But you move on past that because you don't want to take anything away from Terrance Bud Crawford. He's doing what he got to do. He knocked the guy out. But you still don't just acknowledge, you still don't just ignore that the dude knee has been shot off. You dig? Same thing with Amir Khan. Amir Khan had great accolades in his career, but you also have to acknowledge when he got to Terrance Bud Crawford, he wasn't the same fighter he was in his prime, and he had then showed that he got a glass jaw. You know what I'm saying? He had been knocked out cold, and he didn't rebound from that very well. He from that point on never was really the same. So when he fought Terrance Bud Crawford, he'd get knocked down and falling all over the ring, and he quit off of a low blow. So how much can you give Terrance Bud Crawford as far as saying, oh, you just destroyed an elite Amir Khan? And you be like, he beat Amir Khan, you give him his credit, you salute it, but you still have to say Amir Khan quit and Amir Khan got a glass jaw. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Agitas Kavalauskas. To me, I give him way more credit for Agitas Kavalauskas, the Green Machine, than a lot of people give him. A lot of people be like, oh, Green Mean Machine, who is that? I seen that Agitas Kavalauskas was a front runner with some power. But you can also see that he had just came off of a draw against Ray Robinson, who they say kind of got robbed. And Ray Robinson, I think I heard he gave Terrance Bud Crawford fits in the past in amateurs. You know what I'm saying? Either way, that's nothing. But Agitas Kavalauskas, you could see, even though he wasn't a household name, he was a legit dangerous threat. But you could tell he was a front runner, a power puncher that gassed out. But you salute Terrance Bud Crawford. He withstood the storm. He did what he had to do. He got off the canvas. He fought. He gritted, bit down on his gum shield, and he beat the shit out of Green Machine. So you give him salutes, but you still acknowledge that Green Machine was a front runner who gassed out and still managed to knock Terrance Bud Crawford down and get in a lot of good, clean shots. That's just, you see what you see. You know what I'm saying? Call it how you see it. Same thing with Kell Brook. I love to see him fight Kell Brook, but Kell Brook was way past it. Teddy Atlas was calling him a ghost ship, and he had issues making the weight before. He already had one eye socket bust. He had the other eye socket bust. When he went to fight Terrance Bud Crawford, he didn't even have his original trainer, some dude that they didn't even speak the same language. He didn't have the same promotional company backing him up. You've seen him just run on a treadmill to diet down and lose weight. He looked like he was in excellent shape, but he didn't have no punch resistance. It just was a lot of things with Kell Brook. You'd be like, I only can give Terrance Bud Crawford so much credit, but he did what he had to do. And then when it came to Shawn Porter, I really was excited that Shawn Porter was fighting, because we know Shawn Porter is a truth machine. He sets the bar. He's gonna take a pound of flesh, and he put up a good fight. But when you still have to say Terrance Bud Crawford was the only person to stop Shawn Porter, and you salute him. He's great. You don't deny that. But you also can't say Shawn Porter was talking about, oh man, I was going to retire anyway, and Kenny Porter talking about, I knew I was going to throw in the towel. watching training. And when I was training him, he wasn't training like I wanted him to. I knew I was going to throw in the towel. Sean Porter was talking about I didn't train the way he wanted me to train. I was being defiant. And he said even after the fight, he was in the shower thinking about it. Did I give my best? Did I give my best? Then he said, well, yeah. I really can't say I did my best. Well, it's like, dude, if you going that back and forth after the fight, whether or not you put in 100%, and you was talking about retiring, and Kenny Porter was talking about you wasn't training, then you didn't give 100%. I give Terrance Crawford 100% credit for taking you out and making Kenny Porter throw in the towel, but I'm not going to act like I didn't hear you say you didn't train as much as you wanted to. That's your best friend. That's your buddy. You never really wanted to fight him in the first place. So I digress. Terrance Bud Crawford is great, and I respect him and give him all the credit in the world. Like I said, I can break down. Same thing with Errol Spence. It's just a little bit less. You can see Errol Spence fought a little bit. His competition was a little tougher. You can still point out deficiencies. You can do that with any boxer. And I can point out some of Errol Spence's deficiencies that I see with the fighters that he fought, but I still say he fought tougher competition. Like when he fought Kell Brook, he went into his backyard. They was throwing chocolate brownies at him and shit. But Kell Brook was undefeated as a welterweight, but he went up and he fought against Triple G and got his eye socket bust for the first time. Roy Jones was real quick to point that out. Like, we can't call Errol Spence the truth right now because Kell Brook, even though he's great, he's still coming off an eye injury. That's very significant. And then Errol Spence to break the other eye, you just give him his credit. You can see that was a tough fight. It was a battle of attrition. Kell Brook was a live dog in that fight and was catching Spence and pushing Spence back. It was a back and forth, ebbs and flows, and then Errol Spence broke him down. But you can still say, yeah, that wasn't. What if he would have fought Kell Brook before he got his eye socket busted and went up in weight and came back down in weight? You can say that. You can say Lamont Peterson wasn't in his prime when he got broke down and beat down by Errol Spence. You know what I'm saying? You can say, who was Chris Van Heerden? Who was that guy? He was undefeated, southpaw, but who was he? He was no household name. You can do that with him too. You can be like, who is Ocampo? What has he accomplished? Mikey Garcia was small. Even though Mikey Garcia was undefeated, he was on the pound-for-pound list. He came up and he fought Adrian Broner. You know what I'm saying? Adrian Broner is not no Terrance Bud Crawford or Errol Spence, but Mikey Garcia, nothing to sneeze at. At the time, you know what I'm saying, Mikey Garcia was one of the best technical boxers that you could be heard of at that time. But he was a smaller guy, coming up two, some say one, some say two. He come up two weight divisions. And Errol Spence dominated him. So I can say Errol Spence completely dominated that dude, but he didn't knock him out. And Mikey Garcia was smaller. So you can take away. You know what I'm saying? You can do the same thing with Sean Porter. Sean Porter tested Errol Spence's mettle. Now I can say when Sean Porter fought Terrance Bud Crawford, there was this whole retirement thing and this half-ass training shit and this towel being thrown in with Kenny Porter, power struggle back and forth. But I can honestly say when Sean Porter fought Errol Spence, he had a belt. He had the green suit with the golden WBC chain. Kenny Porter had on the WBC chain, Cuban linked or whatever. He had a lot more to lose. He was training harder. He was talking about cutting Errol Spence. I'm going to cut you. We're going to see who got the more dog in them when I cut you. Sean Porter was more than a live dog for that fight. He was like the best Sean Porter I had ever seen. Better than when he fought Alberto and AB and Paulie Malignaggi, and he looked like he was laser focused in on this fight. But he still was Sean Porter. Sean Porter is still going to be Sean Porter, a football player or fighting like he's drowning. Errol Spence was disrespecting the man's skill, said he didn't have no skill set. He just got talent. But I can say it's still Sean Porter. He didn't stop him. He knocked him down. But Sean Porter was getting off on Errol Spence and clipping him and catching him coming in. And it was a tough back and forth fight. A lot of people look at Errol Spence like, you know, it was so close it only came down to the knockdown. I think that's a stretch. I feel like Errol Spence was busting him down and getting in a lot of shots that he wasn't getting credit for. But it was a rough and ugly fight. Like you said, Errol Spence kind of fought the wrong fight. He fought Sean Porter at his own game, but he beat him at his own game. So you can give Errol Spence credit and you can take away here and there because Sean Porter gave him a tough scrap. Accident, comeback, fight Danny Garcia. I don't know how much you can really take away from Danny Garcia. He was always in close fights with Keith Thurman and Sean Porter. You know what I'm saying? even with Lamont Peterson close fight. I don't know how much you can take away from Danny Garcia. He just didn't seem as motivated, but he never been dominated the way he was dominated. And you got to factor in Errol Spence was coming off of a long layoff and a car accident, new teeth, facial, blah, blah, and he dominated Danny Garcia. So I don't know how much you can take away from Danny Garcia in that fight, but you got to give Errol Spence full credit for coming back off a layoff, not taking a tune-up fight, fighting Danny Garcia. A lot of legit boxing pundits was picking Danny Garcia to win that fight, not knowing what version of Errol Spence we was going to get. So there you have it. Then he's on fight Manny Pacquiao. That shit didn't happen. In steps Yordenis Ugas. Yordenis Ugas underrated like a motherfucker. He really kind of beat Sean Porter. And he had some losses, but he beat Manny Pacquiao. Oh, Manny Pacquiao's old. Manny Pacquiao was old, but he Manny Pacquiao. He just beat the shit out of AB and beat the shit out of Keith Thurman. You know what I'm saying? So when Yordenis Ugas beat Manny Pacquiao, and then he got a belt, finally a champion, the Cuban Cinderella man, he putting Cuba on his back, and he fight Errol Spence. They both got a lot to lose. So you're going to get the best version of Yordenis Ugas, and he got his head cracked open. Too much heart for his own good almost. And you do nothing but salute Yordenis Ugas. You can't really take away from Yordenis Ugas, but besides to say, well, he's not Terrance Bud Crawford. He don't have the same foot speed. He's not going to just stand there and be a heavy bag. That's the only thing you can really say, but you can't take away from Yordenis Ugas. He got a couple of losses, but he got way more comebacks. He a tough fighter, Cuban, used to southpaws. You know what I'm saying? Decent power in both hands. You can take away from Yordenis Ugas a little bit, but you got to give more credit to Errol Spence. Coming back from a detached retina injury, people counting him out, saying he damaged goods, and he come back and break this dude eye socket. And now it's about to be Terrance Bud Crawford versus Errol Spence. Terrance Bud Crawford, you're great. I think Errol Spence is greater. And I think he's going to show that in this fight. But you both need each other to prove it. Because right now, that kind of hangs in the balance of who's the greatest.